Today I'm going to show you how to crochet this super fluffy snake just in time for Chinese New Year. So the pattern calls for super bulky weight yarn and takes approximately 62.5 grams in dried rose and 3 grams in cream. You're also going to need a 5mm crochet hook and 10mm safety eyes, in addition to your normal crochet items like yarn needles, stitch markers, embroidery floss, and stuffing. However, the gauge doesn't matter much. You can use any size yarn and matching hook size as long as you adjust the yardage of yarn accordingly. If you're using a larger weight yarn and a larger hook size, you'll end up using a bit more, and if you're using a smaller weight yarn and smaller hook size, you'll probably use a little less. If you haven't already, be sure to snag the matching greeting card to make an adorable and one-of-a-kind gift that your friends and family will love. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so we are getting started on the snake's head and body, and we're going to begin with this cream-colored yarn and by forming a magic ring. So let's go ahead and do a quick review on how to get a magic ring formed and then how to place the first few single crochet stitches inside. Alright, so let's review how to form a magic ring. So we're going to start by taking a little length of our yarn, and I'm using white for this demonstration. Make sure you're using the correct color for the pattern that you are following along with. So I'm going to take this white and I'm going to reserve myself a little bit of a tail. So I'm going to take the end of that yarn and I'm going to stretch it so I've got about 5 inches or so of a tail. And the tail is going to be the end that is not attached to our ball of yarn. So once we've got about 5 inches or so reserved of that tail, we're going to take our yarn hand. For me, that's my left hand, but if you're a left-handed crocheter, this might be your right hand. But we're going to take our yarn hand and make a bit of a finger guns here. So my index and my middle finger, I'm going to put them together and I'm going to be looking at the inside of them. Then I'm going to take that tail that I've reserved, that 5 inches, and I'm going to lay it so that it's over the lower digit on my index and my middle. And then I'll take my thumb and I'm going to press the yarn to those 2 fingers. Then I'm going to take my hook hand, which is for me my right hand, but could be your left hand. I'm going to grab the working yarn. Once I've got that grabbed, I'll take it and I'm going to wrap it around the back side of my index and my middle finger so that it's sort of close to that top digit. I'll flip my hand over so you can see. So I want it to be close to my top digit, so you can see it's closer to the 2 tops of my fingers here. So we're going to wrap that around, and then once we've got it around the top digit of those 2 fingers, we're going to bring it so that it goes behind our thumb again. So I use my thumb and I pinch that second wrap in place. Then we're going to keep wrapping, this time going around the lower digit on our 2 fingers. So I'll flip my hand over so you can see these 2 wraps here. This is that one I just made, going around that lower digit. So we'll wrap around that lower digit. And then we're going to take our working yarn and one more time snug it behind our thumb. And then just pull it out of our way. So once we've done that, we should have 2 wraps and this sort of X shape on the insides of our hands. So once we have all of the yarn wrapped around our yarn hand here, we're ready to take our crochet hook in our hook hand. And we're going to flip our yarn hand over so that we're looking at the back side of our fingers. So we should have 2 wraps, one around the top digit, one around the lower digit on our yarn hand. We're going to take our hook and slip it underneath that top wrap, and then use the hook part to snag that lower wrap and bring it underneath the top wrap. Then we're going to take both of our hands and we're going to flip them over so that we're looking at the inside and away from our body. So I'm flipping out and away from my body. And then I'm going to bring my 2 hands together, so my yarn hand and my hook hand. I'm going to bring them so the index finger here on my hook hand can touch the back side of my yarn hand. Then using the thumb and index finger of my hook hand, I'm going to grab both the wrap on my hook and the wrap still on my fingers right where they meet. So I'm going to kind of snag the 2 of them together right there. Once I've got those pinched between my thumb and index finger on my hook hand, I can let go with my thumb and then gently slide those wraps off of my index and middle finger. So now that I've done that, Let's locate both the tail, that's the end that's no longer attached to our ball of yarn, so it's got this blunt cut end on it. And we're going to kind of pull that over into the 12 o'clock position, so kind of up and away. And then let's locate the working yarn. That's the stuff still attached to our ball of yarn. So once we've got those two identified, we're going to take the working yarn and begin tensioning it. So to do that, we'll take our index finger on our yarn hand. That for me is my left hand. Could be your right hand for you if you're a left-handed crocheter. And we're going to slip the working yarn over the top of our index finger. Then we'll take our middle, ring, and pinky finger on our yarn hand, and we're going to wrap those around that working yarn. Once you've done that, we also need to sandwich this working yarn in between our magic ring and our tail. So to do that, I like to take my middle finger and thumb on my yarn hand, and I'm going to grab that tail with my middle finger here. And then with my thumb, I want to grab the ring. So we don't want to grab our working yarn, which is kind of going in through that ring. We want to just get the bottom end of the ring here. And once you've got those two, we're going to kind of pinch them together. And you can see that sandwiches our working yarn in between the two of them. Once we've got those grabbed with our yarn hand, we can let go with our index and thumb on our hook hand. And the ring here that's on our hook is really loose. We'll tighten that by pulling our index finger up and away. You can see how that tightens that yarn. And then once we've done that, we're ready to yarn over and draw through the loop on our hook. So we'll take our hook, put the yarn over our hook. So I kind of just swing around the back side there and grab it. And we're going to pull that working yarn directly through the loop on our hook. Once we've done that, you can let go. It's not going to come undone. It won't come untied, which is very comforting because we've spent all this time creating it. The last thing we need to do before we're ready to begin is we're going to take the tail, and you can see it's threaded through our magic ring. We're going to take that tail and we're going to pull it out from the center of that ring. And from here, we're ready to begin working in the magic ring. We also need to work over the tail as well. So we'll take that ring and we'll take the tail and we're going to set them together so that we are working over both of these strands, the ring and the tail. All right, you are ready to go ahead and continue on in your pattern. Okay, so I have my magic ring formed and ready to start in on round 1, where we're going to be putting 8 single crochet stitches inside of the ring, and then also over the tail we use to tie the ring. So I like to take my middle finger and my thumb on my yarn hand and hold those two pieces together, the tail and the ring. And then tensioning the yarn with my index finger, I'm going to take my hook hand's index finger and hold that loop as I take my hook and pass it underneath the tail and through the ring. Then I'm going to yarn under. So I'm going to put the yarn underneath my crochet hook, and you can see I sort of flip my hook over to do this. And then draw that yarn through the ring and up into a very nice tall loop. And this is really important when we're working with this plush yarn, because if we don't work loosely, our ring will not be the magic ring, it'll break, which is very unfortunate and very frustrating. So work all of these stitches as loosely as you can. All right, and to finish off our single crochet stitch, we're going to yarn over. So put the yarn over our crochet hook and then draw it through those 2 loops left on our hook. Then from here, we need to mark this first stitch. So to mark this stitch, we're going to take our stitch marker and slip it from front to back underneath both sides of that stitch. And then lock in place. And that's our first single crochet stitch, so we're going to keep adding them in that same way. Hold the loop on our hook as we push through, yarn under and draw up a loop. Then yarn over and draw through both. There's my second crochet stitch. Here's my third, fourth, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. And you can double check that that's the amount you have by kind of turning your work on the side here. And starting from the stitch we've marked, count those V shapes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then we don't count the loop on our hook as a stitch. So when you have all 8 of your single crochet stitches for round 1, we can very gently pull the tail for a magic ring, which closes off round 1 and brings the last stitch that we made right up against the first stitch, which is great because that's where our next round begins. So for round 2, we're going to be increasing in each of the 8 stitches we made in round 1. So to start off, we're going to be putting our increase in this stitch we have marked. So let's take our stitch marker out. And an increase is when you put 2 single crochet stitches in the same stitch from the previous round. So we're going to take our hook, hold the loop on our hook as we push through that stitch, then yarn under, drop a loop through the stitch, then yarn over and draw through both, and then mark that stitch we just made. So that's the first stitch of the round. To finish our increase, we're going to put a second single crochet stitch in that exact same stitch that our first one's in. So go back through, yarn under and drop a loop, yarn over and draw through 2. And we have 2 stitches now coming out of the first stitch we made from round 1. So we're going to continue increasing in each of these stitches. We're going to kind of go over to the next stitch here, slip through just like we did with our first stitch, put 2 single crochet stitches in there, and just keep increasing until we are all the way around and have 16 stitches total. Alright, so we are all the way around round 2. Before we move on to round 3, let's give our magic ring tail one final just gentle tug. And then we're going to trim that tail short but not off. So I'm leaving a little on the back side of my work. Alright, so you can see that trimmed magic ring tail is going to just hang out on the back side of our work. And we're ready for rounds 3 and 4. So for rounds 3 and 4, we're just going to be putting 1 single crochet stitch in each stitch all the way around. So remember, when you start each new round, you have to remark that first stitch. So here I am starting in on round 3. I just put my first single crochet stitch and remarked. And I'm just going to continue adding 1 single crochet stitch to every stitch of round 3. Alright, so I'm all the way round 3, starting in on round 4, so taking my stitch marker out, and then remarking, and then just putting 1 single crochet stitch in every stitch. And then I'm going to pause when I get to the last single crochet stitch of round 4, because we have a color change coming up. Alright, so I have just made the second to last single crochet stitch of round 4. And I need to switch to that dried rose purpley colored yarn. So to do that, I need to make most of that last single crochet stitch, but then I need to pull through the last 2 loops with my new color. So I'll take my hook and go through that last single crochet stitch of round 4, yarn under and draw up a loop. And then, since we're not coming back to our white, we're going to go ahead and give it a trim. So I'm going to trim a short tail, 4 to 5 inches or so, and then get my new color ready, which is this kind of purpley dried rose color. And then to start my color change, I'm going to take that and pinch it over on itself. So I have a little bit of a tail here, and then I have what's connected to the ball of yarn. Then I'll take that little loop that I've created, put it on my hook, and then use my hook to pull it through those 2 loops left on my crochet hook. Then we need to take that short tail that we've made and lay it to the back side with the white tail. And we're ready to start tensioning the purple and work in our next round. Alright, so round 5, we're starting off by placing 1 single crochet stitch in the next 6 stitches, but we also need to weave our tails in from our color change. So I'm going to go through this next stitch, And then those two tails, the white and the purple, I'm going to lay them over my crochet hook. And then yarn under as normal and yarn over. So I'm going to keep laying those tails over my hook as I continue working. So here's my second single crochet stitch, laying those tails over. I'm going to work them in all 6 of these stitches here at the beginning of round 5. Alright, so there are all 6 of those single crochet stitches with the tails woven in. I'm just going to take them and push them to the inside of my work. So they're going to hang on the same side that our magic ring tail's on. Alright, so next up for round 5, we're going to put 1 increase in the next 4 stitches. So sort of back to back increasing here. So again, remember that's putting 2 single crochet stitches in the same place. So there's my second increase, third, and fourth. And then I'm going to put 1 single crochet stitch in the 6 remaining stitches. Alright, so that's round 5 done. I'm ready for round 6, starting with 6 single crochet stitches. So here's my first. Alright, I have those 6 single crochet stitches. Then I need to repeat this parentheses pattern next. So what that means is I need to do everything that's inside of those parentheses in the order that they appear, the amount of times indicated outside. So we already know how to do everything inside of those parentheses. We'll do 1 single crochet stitch in the next stitch of our round, and then 1 increase. And then we just need to repeat that pattern 3 more times for a total of 4 times. So 1 single crochet stitch, 1 increase, there's my second repetition, 1 single crochet stitch, 1 increase, there's the third, and 1 last time. Alright, so there's that parentheses pattern done. Then to finish off this round, just 1 single crochet stitch in the remaining 6 stitches. Alright, and that wraps up round 6. So we're ready to get the eyes placed. So I'm going to take the loop that's on my hook, pull it long, and take my hook out. And our face is actually going to be right along where those increases are. So that parentheses pattern that we just repeated and those 4 back-to-back increases, that's exactly where our eyes are going to be placed. So they're in between those 2 rows. So that first purple row is round 5 and the second purple row is round 6. And they're about 3 stitches apart. So I'm going to take my safety eye, I'm going to place it over here on the left-hand side, and then count over 3 stitches inside of this first row. So 1, 2, 3, and then place my second eye. And that looks pretty good to me. So once you're happy with the eyes placement, you can take the plastic backs that come with them and snap them on the back side of your work. A quick note though, if you're giving this snake to a small child or to a pet, you may want to embroider these eyes on instead. But if not, and safety eyes work for you, then we're good to continue on in our pattern. So I'm going to go ahead and take my hook, go back in through that loop, tighten it down by pulling my working yarn. And we're ready for round 7. So round 7, we're going to put 1 single crochet stitch in the next 6 stitches of the round. Alright, so there are those 6 single crochet stitches. Then we have a new parentheses pattern to repeat. So we're going to repeat it 4 times, just like our last one in round 6. This time we're going to put 1 single crochet stitch in the first 2 stitches. So here's that first and second, and then an increase. And then I'm going to do that 3 more times for a total of 4. So 1, 2, increase, 1, 2, increase, And one last time. Alright, so there's that parentheses pattern. Then I'm going to put one single crochet stitch in the 6 remaining stitches of my round. Alright, that's round 7 done. I'm ready for round 8. So round 8, I'm going to put one single crochet stitch in the next 13 stitches of my round. Alright, so there are all 13 of those single crochet stitches, and you can see it sort of centers me right in between where the eyes are. Then in the next 2 stitches, I'm going to put 2 increases. So one increase in the next and one increase right after. So there's my first increase, second increase, and then one single crochet stitch in the remaining 13 stitches of the round. Alright, so that's round 8 done. So then for rounds 9, 10, 11, and 12, we're going to just be putting one single crochet stitch in every stitch all the way around. So like we did on our last multi-round repeat, which was rounds 3 and 4, we need to start every round by making the first single crochet stitch and then remarking that stitch. So here I am starting it on round 9, one single crochet stitch in every stitch all the way around, and I will catch you back here whenever I have finished the last single crochet stitch of round 12 and we're ready to move on. Alright, so I just made the last single crochet stitch of round 12 and I'm ready to move on to round 13. So we're starting with one single crochet stitch in the next 13 stitches of the round. Alright, so there are those 13 single crochet stitches, and then in the next 4 stitches we need to make 2 decreases. So to do a decrease, we're going to take our hook and go through our next stitch, yarn under and draw up a loop, and then repeat in the stitch right after. Go through, yarn under, and draw up a loop. Then yarn over and draw through all 3 of those loops on your hook to decrease. So we're going to make a second one of those. So go through, draw up a loop, go through the next, draw up a loop, then yarn over and draw through all 3. And then in one single crochet stitch, now that we've got both of those decreases, we're going to finish the round off by putting one single crochet stitch in the 13 remaining stitches of the round. Alright, so there's round 13 done. I'm ready for round 14, starting with one single crochet stitch in the first 6 stitches of the round. Right, there are those 6 single crochet stitches, and then we've got a parentheses pattern to repeat, starting with one single crochet stitch in the next 2 stitches, and then following that with one decrease. Alright, so there's one repetition of that pattern. Let's do that another 3 times. So 2 single crochet stitches, decrease. Alright, there were all 4 of those repetitions, then one single crochet stitch in the 6 remaining stitches of the round. Alright, round 14's done. Moving on to round 15, starting with one single crochet stitch in the next 6 stitches of our round. There are those 6 single crochet stitches, then another parentheses pattern to repeat, one single crochet stitch followed by one decrease, and we're going to repeat that 4 times total, so 3 more times. There's that last repetition for me, then one single crochet stitch in the 6 remaining stitches of the round. Alright, so before we move on to round 16, we're going to put some stuffing inside of the head. So just like with the safety eyes, we'll pull the loop on our hook long, remove our hook, and then get some stuffing inside of the snake's head here. Alright, so I have put some stuffing inside of the snake's head and I'm ready to continue on to round 16. So I'm going to take my hook, put it back through that loop I drew up long, tighten it down. And I'm ready for round 16, starting with one single crochet stitch in the next 4 stitches of the round. Right, there are those 4 single crochet stitches. Now I need to make 6 decreases back to back. So decreasing. Right, there are those 6 decreases, and then 1 single crochet stitch in the 4 remaining stitches of the round. Alright, so right now I'm going to add another little pinch of stuffing. So I'm just going to take a little bit, push it to the inside of the snake's head, and we're going to want to continue adding stuffing just like this as we work, because for rounds 17 through 76, we're going to be just crocheting around and around and around, making the snake's body. And it's a narrow space to try to stuff at the very end of our project, so we should stuff it as we go. So every couple of rounds, remember to put a little more stuffing in as you work. Here I am starting it on round 17. I will see you back here whenever I am just about done with round 76. And then we can move on to round 77 together. Alright, so I just made the last single crochet stitch of round 77. You can see my work is quite a bit longer and I have been stuffing it as I go. But I'm ready to go ahead and start in on round 77 here. So we're going to be putting 1 single crochet stitch in the next 3 stitches of our round. So there are those 3 single crochet stitches. Then we're going to make 1 decrease. Then 1 single crochet stitch in the next 5 stitches. Then 1 decrease, and then 1 single crochet stitch in the remaining 2 stitches of the round. Alright, that's round 77. So for round 78 through 82, we're going to be putting 1 single crochet stitch in every stitch all the way around. So I'll see you back here whenever I have the last single crochet stitch of round 82, and we're ready to move on to round 83. And don't forget, stuff as you work. Alright, so I just made round 82, and I'm ready to move on to round 83. We're going to put 1 single crochet stitch in the next 2 stitches of the round. And then decrease. And we'll repeat that another 2 times. So 2 single crochet stitches, decrease. And 1 last time. Alright, that is round 83 done. Round 84, we're just going to put 1 single crochet stitch in each stitch all the way around. We're almost done here with the snake. Alright, that's round 84 done, and before I make my last round, I'm going to add a little more stuffing here to the inside of the body. Alright, there we are, and I'm ready for round 85. I'm going to put 1 single crochet stitch in the next stitch of the round. And then decrease. And then repeat that another 2 times. So 1 single crochet stitch, decrease, and 1 last time. Alright, so that is the last round. We are ready to fasten off, and we're going to do that by taking our stitch marker out and slip stitching in the stitch it was just in. So to do that, we're going to go through that stitch, yarn under and draw up a loop, and then draw that loop through the only loop left on our crochet hook. We need to cut a medium length tail, 6 to 8 inches, doesn't need to be too long. And then gently pull that tail till it passes through the loop we just cut, and then tighten. Then we need to close off the last round here on our snake's body by taking this tail we just cut and threading it through the eye of our yarn needle. And then we're going to sew through each of the front loops left behind from the stitches of round 85. So we're going to start by kind of going over to the left of that slip knot we have, and then grabbing just the front loop of each of these remaining stitches. So we're kind of sewing from the bottom to the top through those two V shapes that form our stitch. Then we'll rotate and sew through the next front loop. I'm just going to slowly rotate around, sewing through each of these 6 front loops from round 85. And then to close this off, I'm going to pull very gently, which closes that last round. And then we need to secure this last round by tying a French knot or a surface knot. So we'll take our tail and we're going to loop it over the surface of our work, grab some of the fabric of our work, and then sew up through that loop and pull. That tail's going to wrap around itself and tie a knot. Then we'll weave this tail in by sewing it down and into the fabric of our snake. And I'm going to weave it in quite a bit. So I'm going to go back into that same stitch I came out of. And I'll go one last time, just for extra security. Then we can unthread and trim close to the surface of our work. And that wraps up the snake's body. You can see I've got my whole snake here. Next up, we need to get the eye details and the nose and the eyebrows added. Alright, so next up we need to add the details here on the snake's face. So we're going to start by sewing the eye details and shaping the face. So I'm going to take this white yarn that I have threaded through my needle. I'm going to go in between the spaces of stitches here on the white nose, and then come up on the inside of the right eye and sew as close as you can to that eye. And then we're going to leave a tail on the outside because we're going to come back and attach to this. Then we're going to sew around the outer corner of this eye. So I'm going to go here and then I'm going to send it straight down and into the bottom of the snake's snout. So into the white fabric here. I'm going to pull, and that's going to wrap itself around the eye. Right, so I have this stitch here sewn around the eye, and then I'm going to send this down and into the fabric of the snout. And then I'm going to sew up through the snout and come out close to the outside corner of the left eye, and then pull this stitch pretty tight because we're going to use it to sort of cinch the snake's snout flat. And then we're going to sew around the outside corner of this eye. So I'm going to sew this stitch sort of around the eye here. There we go. And then one more time sew down and through the layers of the snout. And then we're going to sew back up and out through where we originally came in through and pull pretty tight. Alright, so now that I have the white details added around the outside of the eyes and I've sewn back out through that space I came down through, I'm going to just tie these two tails together. Then trim them short. And use my needle to pull the fabric next to them so they go inside of my snake's head and sort of hide out. Alright, Alright, so you can see there are the eye details added. Next, we're going to go ahead and do the eyelashes and the eyebrows. I've got some black yarn. I'm going to thread it through my yarn needle. So we're going to do the eyelashes first. So I'm going to sew down in between the spaces of stitches, so try not to get any of your fabric. Then I'm going to come to the outside corner of the right eye and leave a tail on the outside of my work. And I'm just going to sew a straight stitch along the top of the eye. And then come out next to the other eye. You can see that adds the eyelash detail. It's also the other detail on this side. And then I need to add the eyebrows. So they're on row 8. So this is row 6 just above the eyes. 7, 8. So I'm going to come up here into row 8. Centered where the inside corner of the eye is on the left side, I'm going to sew just one diagonal stitch over row 8. And then repeat on this side too. Then while we've got this black threaded, let's go ahead and sew the nostrils on too. So I'm going to go out into the fabric of the white nose here. So you see that adds the eyebrows. And then I'm just going to sew one straight stitch to make the nostrils. Then we'll come up through where that tail we left behind is. You can see there's the nostrils there. And we'll tie these together. And trim. And just like with the white detail, we're going to pull the fabric next to where those knots are and push them to the inside. Alright, so there is the snake's face added, and that wraps up this pattern.